The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson. Picture this. You're a salesperson who's been nurturing a massive contract for months. The relationship is solid, the trust is there. Then your phone rings, and your stomach drops. Your longtime customer delivers the news every salesperson dreads. To cut costs, they're opening your contract to competitive bidding. You're about to be thrown into a gladiator arena of price cuts. Your move? Most people would slash prices, trim margins down to nothing, and brace for battle. Whatever it takes to keep the business, right? But one sales team did something that sounds absolutely insane. They politely told the customer, "Thanks, but no thanks. We're sitting this one out." Dead silence. Then came the twist. "Look, since we're not bidding," the salesperson continued, "and since we genuinely value what we've built together, how about we help you design your request for proposal? Let's make sure you're asking the right questions, no matter who you end up choosing." The customer, caught completely off guard but intrigued, agreed. For the next several hours, this sales team basically gave away free consulting gold. They walked the customer through hidden landmines in their industry. They shared insights the customer had never even considered. If a supplier tells you these three things, they warned, they're completely wrong, and here's exactly why. Whatever you do, insist on these two things. They're absolutely critical, and here's why. The customer was floored. These were blind spots they never knew existed. They built their entire request for proposal around this revolutionary new perspective. When it was finished, the sales team looked at what they'd helped create and said, "You know what? This is a bid we'd actually be excited to participate in, because it describes exactly the kind of partnership we believe in." They didn't just win the deal. They made it virtually impossible for their competitors to even compete. They had taught the customer how to buy. This right here captures something powerful, maybe even a little unsettling. It's the essence of a book that completely flipped the sales world on its head, based on one of the most massive studies of sales performance ever conducted. It's called The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson. Here's the thing. This book isn't just for salespeople. It's for anyone who needs to persuade, influence, or lead. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to unpack its secrets for you. By the time we're done, you'll understand a completely new psychology of influence, a way to not just be heard, but to fundamentally reshape how people think. You'll discover that in a world where everyone's desperately trying to be liked, the people who truly make an impact are the ones brave enough to challenge. Let's dive in. For decades, we've been fed a simple recipe for success. It's all about relationships. The conventional wisdom has always said that to win someone over, you need to build rapport first, be agreeable, be helpful, find common ground. In sales, this created an ideal, the relationship builder. This is the person who's generous with their time, always available, working tirelessly to meet every customer need. Their mantra is, "Whatever you need, I've got you." And for a long time, this actually worked. But then, everything shifted. The world got more complex, customers became more informed, and in early 2009, the global economy crashed hard. Businesses everywhere slammed on the brakes. Sales teams were fighting battles they couldn't seem to win. It was like trying to sell to ghosts. Yet right in the middle of this chaos, something weird happened. A small group of salespeople weren't just surviving. They were absolutely crushing it. They were closing huge deals, while everyone else couldn't even get their calls returned. What were they doing differently? This question sparked one of the most important studies in sales history. Researchers from the Sales Executive Council set out to crack the code. They surveyed thousands of salespeople across dozens of companies in every industry imaginable, asking their managers to rate them on every skill and behavior under the sun. When they dug through the mountain of data, they made a startling discovery. Turns out nearly every salesperson falls into one of 5 distinct profiles. First, you've got the hard worker. This person shows up early, stays late, makes more calls than anyone. They believe in the grind. Second, there's the lone wolf. This is your classic sales prima donna. Deeply self-confident, plays by their own rules, often ignores the system. But you can't fire them because they're hitting their numbers. Third is the reactive problem solver. This person is a customer service superhero, obsessed with keeping promises and solving problems, even if it means they never generate new business. Fourth, of course, is the relationship builder, the person we've all been trained to be. They focus on building strong connections, and customers genuinely love them. And then there was the fifth profile, a type of person who was often seen as difficult, maybe even awkward to manage. They had a different take on things and weren't afraid to share it, even when controversial. They didn't just try to understand the customer's world, they challenged it. The researchers called this profile the challenger. Now here's where things get wild. When the researchers compared these 5 profiles against actual sales performance, they found a clear winner and a clear loser. The profile that crashed to the bottom, least likely to be a star performer, was the relationship builder. In complex sales, they barely registered. This shattered decades of sales philosophy. Being liked wasn't the secret sauce. Actually, it was often a roadblock. So who won? The challenger. And it wasn't even close. Nearly 40% of all high performers were challengers. In complex, high-value sales, the kind that define modern business, challengers didn't just win, they dominated. More than half of all star performers in that environment were challengers. This begs the million-dollar question: what exactly do challengers do? Turns out their success isn't magic. It's a specific, learnable set of skills. The researchers found that challengers excel at 3 things. They teach, they tailor, and they take control. And this 3-part framework isn't just a recipe for great salespeople. It's a blueprint for anyone who wants to be truly influential. Let's start with the most important pillar, the ability to teach. When we think of teaching, we might imagine a lecture hall. But for a challenger, teaching is something way more dynamic. It's not about giving a presentation, it's about delivering an insight. Most salespeople are trained to ask questions, to discover a customer's needs. They ask things like, "What's keeping you up at night?" But the authors make a profound point. This approach assumes customers actually know what they need. What if a customer's biggest need is figuring out what they need? Challengers don't discover needs, they reveal them. They teach customers something new and valuable about their own business. A new way to save money, generate revenue, or dodge a risk they didn't even know existed. This isn't just theory. The research on customer loyalty is crystal clear. In another massive study, researchers asked thousands of business customers what drives their loyalty to a supplier. Was it the brand, the product, the service, the price? All those things mattered, but only a little. A whopping 53% of customer loyalty wasn't driven by what you sell, but by how you sell. It was driven by the sales experience itself. And what was the single most important factor? The salesperson's ability to offer unique, valuable perspectives on the market, to educate the customer on new issues and outcomes. In other words, customers reward exactly the behavior that defines the challenger. They don't want a friend, they want a guide. Someone to challenge their assumptions and show them a better way. But this isn't just any kind of teaching. It's a very specific method the authors call commercial teaching. It's a conversation with purposeful choreography, designed to reframe the customer's thinking and naturally lead them to your unique solution. The biggest mistake most people make when trying to persuade someone is leading with their solution. They start by talking about themselves, their product, their company. The challenger does the opposite. They lead to their solution. Their solution is the final, logical conclusion to a story that's entirely about the customer from start to finish. This teaching pitch has 6 distinct steps, and it's a masterclass in persuasion psychology. Let's walk through it using the incredible example of Grainger, a massive distributor of everything from safety gloves to power tools. For years, Grainger's customers saw them as transactional. Need a hammer? Call Grainger. But Grainger wanted to be seen as a strategic partner, and to do that, they had to change how customers thought about something they'd always ignored: their spending on maintenance, repair, and operations, MRO. Here's how they did it, following the 6 steps of a world-class teaching pitch. Step 1. The warmer. The conversation doesn't start with, "Let me tell you about Grainger." It starts with, "Let me tell you about you." The Grainger representative lays out common challenges they see across the industry, building credibility by showing they understand the customer's world. They lead with a hypothesis about the customer's needs, instead of asking the customer to teach them. This simple move immediately establishes them as someone worth listening to. Step 2. The reframe. This is the pivot point. The Grainger representative takes all that spending on hammers, light bulbs, and pumps and introduces a completely new lens. They say the real issue isn't what you're buying, but how you're buying it. They introduce the concept of planned versus unplanned purchases. Then, they drop a bombshell. Their research shows that a full 40% of a typical company's MRO spending is for unplanned, last-minute purchases. Suddenly, they have the customer's complete attention. The customer is thinking, I've never thought of it that way before. That's the reaction a challenger lives for. Not agreement, curiosity. Step 3. Rational drowning. Now that they've reframed the issue, Grainger needs to show why it matters. This is where they bring in the data. They show how these thousands of small, unplanned purchases come from hundreds of different suppliers, with zero leverage on price. But the real gut punch is when they reveal the hidden process costs. The act of buying an $11 hammer, the paperwork, the time, the people involved, can actually cost the company over $100. The customer starts to feel a little sick. They're drowning in rational evidence of a problem they never knew they had. Step 4. Emotional impact. The numbers are powerful, but logic alone rarely moves people. Now, Grainger makes it personal. They tell a story they call the pain chain. They describe the frantic, all-too-familiar scramble when a critical part breaks. Multiple phone calls, guys pulled off the production line, the mad dash across town in rush-hour traffic, and the final, costly decision to buy 3 replacement parts, just in case. Tying up cash in inventory that'll probably gather dust for years. Every customer hears this and thinks, "Wow, it's like you work here. We do that all the time." The problem is no longer an abstract number. It's a felt pain. Step 5. A new way. Having convinced the customer of the problem, Grainger now paints a picture of the solution. But it's still not about Grainger. It's about a new way of operating. Imagine, the representative says, if you could get your arms around all that unplanned spending. Think of the money you could save. They get the customer to buy into the solution before they ever mention the supplier. Step 6. Your solution. Only now, at the very end, does Grainger introduce itself. They've built the perfect stage. They've taught the customer to value a new approach, and it just happens that Grainger, with its massive inventory and distribution network, is uniquely positioned to deliver that new, way better than anyone. They haven't sold hammers. They've sold a new way of thinking, and their solution becomes the only logical choice. This is the power of commercial teaching. It's a journey you take the customer on, one that leads them to a conclusion they feel they've discovered themselves, even though you've been guiding them every step. But teaching, as powerful as it is only one part of the challenger's toolkit. The second pillar is the ability to tailor. In today's business world, you're rarely selling to just one person. Decisions are made by committee. The average number of people involved in a major business purchase has grown, meaning you have to convince a whole room full of people, each with their own priorities and concerns. A challenger understands that a one-size-fits-all message resonates with no one, so they tailor their communication. And this is where the book introduces another powerful idea, the new physics of sales. The old thinking was to fight your way to the top, to reach the senior decision-maker who signs the checks. But the research shows that what senior decision-makers value most isn't a great pitch from a salesperson, but widespread support for the supplier across my organization. In other words, the best path to the decision-maker isn't direct, it's indirect, through their team. You don't win the deal in the corner office. You win it in the trenches by turning the people affected by the decision into your advocates. How? You tailor your message to what each stakeholder cares about most. You speak their language. A fantastic example comes from a company called Soli, which makes food ingredients. Their salespeople used to talk to everyone, from marketing to manufacturing, in the same technical, product-focused language. And they'd get blank stares. So they created a brilliant tool, functional bias cards. For each key role in a customer's organization, they developed a simple, one-page guide explaining what that person was trying to achieve, what worried them, and what they valued. A manufacturing head cares about production efficiency and cost reduction. A marketing head cares about brand image and market share. Armed with these cards, a Sole representative could walk into any meeting and instantly tailor their teaching message to resonate with that specific person. They stopped talking about technical specs and started talking about how their ingredients could help the marketing head build brand equity or help the manufacturing head decrease reject rates. They were translating their value into the language of their listener. That's the essence of tailoring. It's the empathy to understand that different people inhabit different worlds, and the skill to build a bridge from your idea to their world. Now we come to the third and final pillar, and it's the one that often makes people most uncomfortable, the ability to take control. This is not about being aggressive, arrogant, or abusive. The authors are crystal clear on this. Being assertive is not the same as being aggressive. Taking control is about two things: being comfortable discussing money, and being able to push the customer, not to buy, but to think and to act. Challengers are confident in the value they provide because their value is built on the teaching they've just delivered. They've shown the customer a problem they didn't know existed, and they have the solution. So when a customer asks for a discount, they don't immediately cave. They respectfully push back, bringing the conversation back to value, not price. They also create momentum. They understand that a good meeting isn't the goal. A closed deal is. One of the biggest enemies in complex sales isn't the competition, but no decision. Customers get stuck, paralyzed by risk and complexity. A challenger takes control of the process, not by being pushy, but by teaching the customer how to buy. They guide them through complexity, anticipating roadblocks, and showing the path forward. But taking control is most visible and most critical in negotiation. Most reps, especially relationship builders, are terrified of tension. Their natural instinct is to seek closure and agreement as quickly as possible, often by giving things away. Challengers, on the other hand, are comfortable with ambiguity. They understand that a little constructive tension can be powerful. A great case study comes from DuPont, which worked with a training firm to develop a 4-step framework for taking control in negotiation. Imagine a customer immediately demands a 20% price cut. A typical representative panics. A challenger follows a process. Step 1. Acknowledge and defer. The representative doesn't say no. They say, "I understand that price is important, and we'll definitely address it. But before we do, I want to make sure we've fully explored all the ways we can create value for you." Sound good? They've respectfully postponed the price discussion and won permission to continue. Step 2. Deepen and broaden. Now the representative expands the conversation beyond price. They ask questions to get everything else on the table. What about warranty? Delivery times? Service levels? They broaden the universe of what's negotiable. Step 3. Explore and compare. The representative begins exploring trade-offs. Instead of just talking about the price reduction, they ask, "What are you looking to achieve with that 20% cut?" Often, the customer isn't just trying to save money. They're trying to achieve a specific business outcome. Perhaps there's another way to reach that outcome without a massive discount. Step 4. Concede according to plan. A challenger never gives something away without getting something back. And they have a plan for what they're willing to concede. They don't just react. They trade strategically, giving up things that are low cost to them but high value to the customer. This structured approach transforms a high-stakes confrontation into collaborative problem-solving. It keeps the representative in control without being confrontational. And so we see the complete picture of the challenger, someone who walks into a room not to make a friend, but to make a difference. Someone who has the courage to teach a new perspective, the empathy to tailor it to their audience, and the confidence to take control of the conversation to guide it toward a valuable outcome. The final and perhaps most hopeful message of the book is this: challengers aren't just born, they're made. This isn't about fundamentally changing who you are. You don't have to become someone you're not. It's about learning a new set of skills, a new way of interacting with the world. It's about equipping yourself with the tools, training, and mindset to act like a challenger when you need to create value not just with what you offer, but with how you offer it. When you step back from all the detailed frameworks and case studies in the Challenger sale, you're left with a single, profound idea that reaches far beyond business. At its core, this book is about the difference between being liked and being valued. We're all selling something every day. We sell ideas to our team, plans to our family, our vision of the future to ourselves. And in all these interactions, we face a choice. We can take the easy path, the path of the relationship builder. Be agreeable, avoid friction, seek harmony above all. It feels safe, it feels right. But as this book so powerfully argues, it's often the path to being forgotten. The alternative is the path of the challenger. It requires more courage, more preparation, a willingness to introduce constructive tension into conversations. But it's the only path to creating real, lasting impact. The most powerful lesson for me is the shift in focus from ourselves to others, but in a completely counterintuitive way. Most of us think being customer-centric means asking people what they want and giving it to them. The Challenger model flips this completely. It suggests that true value comes from teaching people what they should want, from showing them possibilities they couldn't see on their own. Think about the greatest mentors or teachers you've had. Were they the ones who just told you what you wanted to hear, who validated your existing beliefs? Or were they the ones who pushed you, challenged your assumptions, showed you a higher standard, and gave you the tools to reach it? They were challengers. They weren't just trying to make you feel good, they were trying to make you be good. So how can you start applying this in your own life, starting today? Here are a few simple actions to consider. First, the next time you have an important idea to share, resist the urge to lead with your solution. Don't start with, "Here's what I think we should do." Instead, start with the reframe. Lead with a surprising insight about the problem that the other person may not have considered. Do your homework. Find a new piece of data, a fresh perspective, a hidden cost or overlooked opportunity. Change how they see the problem, and your solution suddenly becomes much more compelling. Second, practice the art of tailoring. Before your next important conversation, don't just think about what you want to say. Think about who you're talking to. What are their goals? Their fears? What language do they speak? Try rephrasing your key message in 3 different ways, each tailored to a different person you need to convince. You'll be amazed at how much more effective you become when you stop making people translate your message and instead do the work of translating it for them. And finally, practice taking control, not by being louder, but by being more prepared. The confidence to be assertive doesn't come from aggression. It comes from knowing your value and having a plan. Before you enter a discussion where you might face pushback, take 5 minutes to think through your response. What will you do if they object? What are you willing to trade? And what's non-negotiable? Planning for tension is the best way to handle it gracefully when it arrives. That was the book summary of The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson. We've certainly covered the main ideas today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary can give you the map, but it can't replace the journey of exploring the territory yourself. The real power of this book is in the details, the specific stories, the data, the subtle shifts in language that bring these concepts to life. This summary is your starting point, a way to decide if this journey is for you. If anything we've discussed has sparked a new idea or challenged an old assumption, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just an act of learning. It's an investment in your own ability to make a genuine impact on the world around you. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something new to think about, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration of another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.